What is up, tube users? I'm the stereotypical gamer, and welcome back to another episode of Z2A. Today, we are diving into a game that I honestly thought was going to be a completely dead online game that wasn't going to work, and I was just going to have to skip over this game because there wasn't anything you could do. It was just a dead game, but it actually has people still playing it, and it was actually pretty fun, and that is Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. Now, this game came out during the big boom of battle royales when PlayerUnknown's Battleground, Fortnite, Apex, all those games were super popular, and it was just kind of riding off the coattails of the popularity of the battle royale genre. And this is made by the same people that made Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, which is a completely different game, but it has the same sort of visuals. The characters in that game look very similar, like these to the red guys that your character is. And, you know, surprisingly, this game, for as kind of wonky and goofy as it is for a Battle Royale game, it actually has really strong mechanics. And I would say out of all the popular Battle Royale games, this game definitely feels most similar to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. It kind of took the name from PlayerUnknown's, but it definitely feels a lot more new player friendly compared to PlayerUnknown's Battleground. I feel like PlayerUnknown's is a lot more hardcore, it's a lot slower paced and a lot more realistic, which isn't really intuitive for new players. It may have changed. I haven't played PlayerUnknown's in a while, but this game, coming back to it after I would say like 5 years or so of not playing it, and just picking up fresh, just really felt good. You know, I feel like the movement is, it looks wonky and it kind of feels wonky at first, is actually pretty decent. The gunplay in this game is surprisingly good, and the amount of different things and kind of unique and silly things that this game brings to the battle royale genre, it just gives it a really fun feel. And it's sad to see that it doesn't have a high player count retention, but honestly, getting into matches was fairly quickly. I played a couple games solo. Solo games were definitely a lot slower to get into, but it was still like a minute or two to get into a solo game that is filled with 50 people. I don't know if like it's a max of 100 player capacity. That was my guess, but it definitely seemed like half capacity for most lobbies. But getting into them, it was fairly quick, and especially in squads, you know, like we were into the game in less than a minute with just random squad mates, and it was fairly fun. Now, this game doesn't really do anything like unique in terms of gunplay or anything. There's a plethora of different weapons, and it kind of has that same feel of looting in PlayerUnknown's, where there's just a bunch of weapons and each weapon has a certain ammo type that it uses, and you have to use that ammo type and all the different customizations that you can do to weapons, like putting on a scope and a silencer. There's a lot of that, you know, and it is kind of overwhelming in this game at first, but just picking up weapons and just seeing how they play, a lot of them are really easy. I mean, it's kind of just basic FPS shooter stuff with a little bit of wonky movement, and I think the movement is kind of what separates it apart. It kind of feels weird, and you kind of feel like you get motion sick a little bit, but once you get the hang of it and how everything works, it's actually pretty decent overall. And I think the best part about this game is the border closing. Like, it's a typical trope in battle royales, right? You start on this big map, and then you have circle closing in, and makes the map smaller and smaller and smaller until there's no more enemies left and you win the game or whatever. A lot of like circle closing, obviously if you're outside the circle it will do damage to you, but there's not a lot of them that have like a real threat, you know. Like PlayerUnknown's, it's pretty like you'll take a little bit of damage, but it's very minuscule at first. Obviously when you get to the later rounds it gets more punishing, and Fortnite's kind of the same way, where the storm kind of just tickles you with damage. I would say probably the most scary storm out there is it was Battlefields with the fire like blazing in on a circle. But I really think this game does it so well. It's these giant pillars. I don't think I showed in this game, but in the next game, you'll see the circle closing, and it's these like giant pillars that close into the new border of the circle and make a giant wall around the new border. So basically, if you're on the outside and you're still there by the time the timer goes down for the next round, you're stuck. Like the walls are ginormous, there's no way to get into them, and you're just kind of screwed. So there's really a frantic pace of trying to get inside the new zone, and really no other game does that. I think Battlefield probably did it the best, but it still wasn't nearly as good as this game. And it's just a really cool and unique thing, and I love the look of seeing these pillars just plop down onto the ground, create this giant wall. It's such a great animation, and it really does give that frantic pace of we need to get to the new circle now because this thing is closing in on us. And it really makes for some interesting encounters too. There was a couple fights that I had where we were inside and the walls were closing, and there was a team outside, and the walls close like together, kind of like a gate, and we were just able to pinch them into the where the wall was closing, and clean up an entire squad. So it's really cool. It's really unique. Like there's no other battle royale that does it like that, and it's such a crazy visual that it's super fun to see. And then, I mean, obviously, there's the silliness to this game. I think probably the best highlight of silliness in this game is the gangster lean. Basically, if you press G, you can lean your weapon sideways while like you're beatboxing like a gangster kind of soundtrack, and it kind of works to a degree, because obviously recoil control just goes horizontal rather than vertical for most weapons, so it does give it like a unique feel. Like most FPS games, you can't shoot sideways like that and have that horizontal recoil like that. It's mainly vertical control for recoil in most games and most weapons, so to have something different like that that's kind of fun is just fresh, and I didn't do it too much because it is really loud. Like you're beatboxing, you can hear it from a ways away, so it just kind of gives away your position. But it was fun to do, like in the shooting range and stuff like that. And I wish if there was like a way to turn off the beatboxing thing, maybe I would actually use it more. But overall, it was still pretty fun and funny. And also the silliness of getting onto the map. A lot of battle royales, you basically like just parachute in on a plane or whatever that goes past the island that you're on. This game, you're like on a train, and you just shoot yourself out of the train like a high-speed cannon and crash into the ground. It's just kind of wacky and silly, but it's really fun because there is like tricks to it. A lot of like the other games, like you can do some parachuting tricks to like get yourself to the ground faster and stuff like that, but I like the speed of this, where there's no fall damage at all in this game, I believe, and just shooting yourself out of a train and crashing down at really high velocity is really fun, and it's unique too, which is another plus in my books. That's a key thing with a lot of these free-to-play battle royale games, is while there's not a lot of uniqueness in terms of gunplay and how the battle royale like game takes place, the little small things that this game does that are completely unique make it really fun. But as far as bad things go about this game, I would say the really only downside is that there is no longer support for this game. I was surprised that the like multiplayer servers were still up, but I guess they are. Like, you can still matchmake through. There's community servers now, which I wasn't able to see or figure out how to get into community servers, but regular matchmaking was working. That's what I was doing, and it was still pretty quick, 50 to 60 players, and we were able to get into games in like a minute or two. So it's still functional, but I don't think there's going to be any more updates to this game. And yeah, it's kind of just like a matter of time, basically, before it probably shuts down completely. But, free to play, it's fun. It's not doing anything that any other Battle Royale game is doing in terms of gameplay wise, but it is a nice breath of fresh air in the Battle Royale genre. Another positive thing that I forgot to mention about this game, especially since it's a Battle Royale competitive kind of first-person shooter game, is I didn't run into any cheaters, at least that I'm aware of in my time playing, which is kind of surprising. I feel like a lot of games that lose support from the developers just gain a whole host of cheaters because it's easier to access cheats or get around the anti-cheat systems in a game that doesn't have support. But I didn't feel like I ran into any. I feel like every fight that I lost, it was either mistakes on my end or just being oblivious and kind of being new, I guess, to this game again. It is a super positive, and is a breath of fresh air, because I feel like a lot of times, especially in like more popular free-to-play Battle Royales, it's a lot more noticeable that people are cheating, and it's a lot easier to detect. But playing with such a low population of players and not coming across anything that really seemed unfair or cheating was really surprising and really fun. And overall, looking at the games that I've played so far in this Z-Day series, this is definitely a game that I would come back to as long as it has continued support. I don't think it's a game that I could necessarily play for extended periods of time, just because I know there's not going to be anything new to it. So coming back to it every once in a while, as long as there's still support and I'm still able to get into games, even if they are low population games, it's still fun. And just spreading that out is a good way to do it for this game, I feel. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like if you did. Go check out Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. It's free on Steam. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.